We are the guys who produce equipment that you can push to its limits. You can depend on it. I think that sums it up about the best way. We are accuracy, precision driven, and while we're at the designing table for these products, we also like to throw in some unique aesthetics and looks. I think we have a one-of-a-kind product on the market.
What's going on, guys, and welcome back. In today's episode, we're going to be talking to Hanno and Quattro Archery. Guys, Hanno is a stud. He knows what he's talking about. He knows what he's doing. I absolutely love the bars that I run on my bow or bows, and absolutely love what he does over there. Him and his brother are far and beyond just some of the best at making stabilizers. They use their equipment, they put it through the test in the field, on the field as far as hunting goes, as far as target archery goes. They just absolutely crush it. So look forward to that, guys. Also, before we get into this conversation, I wanted to remind you that there is a giveaway going on through the month of December. Over $500 worth of gear that I'm giving away. The UV3XL scope to put on whatever rail that you've got that it'll go on. That's something that I want to give away to you guys, along with a bunch of First Phorm swag, First Phorm gear, some binoculars, a bino harness, rangefinder. All of that's going to get shipped to you. It goes all the way through December. Every $10 spent at the link down below with First Phorm, guys, gets you an entry. Every $10 gets you an entry. You'll screenshot what your order is, and then you'll send it to me in an email. So with that being said, guys, go get in on that. Make sure you get in before the end of December. And if you have any questions, drop a comment, send me an email, send me a message on Instagram, whatever it may be. Also, after this, when you guys are wanting to go and purchase your Quattro Archery stabilizers, I do have a code that I'm going to leave down below. We'll make sure that you guys get taken care of. And they are doing outstanding work again over there at Quattro Archery. Check it out, guys. Enjoy this video. And here we go. Conversation with Hanno. What's going on, guys? I have an outstanding guest for you guys. Thanks so much for tuning back in. We have Hanno De Klerk. He is from South Africa, and we talked about a year ago, actually, was the last time we had you on the podcast, or maybe even longer than that. They've come out with some amazing items since then that we're going to walk you through in the stabilizer world. The stabilizer market is a saturated market, and we talked about that in the last podcast, how there's so many stabilizers out there and why Quattro is the one that I run on my setup. And that was the bars that were on my setup for my first bull this year, and I really like them a lot. And now you've come out with some new stuff that I'm excited to throw on the bows and mess around with. So first off, I guess, Hanno, who are you for those that don't know who you are?
We are the guys who produce equipment that you can push to its limits. You can depend on it. I think that sums it up about the best way. We are accuracy, precision driven, and while we're at the designing table for these products, we also like to throw in some unique aesthetics and looks. I think we have a one-of-a-kind product on the market, and for a very good reason. It's built different. The materials that we use, the processes, they speak for themselves. It's aerospace carbon that we use. Everybody knows about Cerakote. We are the only, I think, stabilizer manufacturer using that paint. And we do quite a lot of, we put in a lot of time to get that Cerakote mixed to match your bows and stuff. So we like the nice stuff and the stuff that performs nicely. If we can put it that way.
Oh yeah, no, for sure. Quattro is, you've got so many different opportunities in your lineup. You have 3 different styles of hunting, what you would consider hunting stabilizers, and we'll delineate between hunting and target, why people might want to go one versus the other. but the stabilization on it is outstanding. They're lightweight. You've got, some thicker bars that are made out of wood, which is something that I haven't seen before. They're pretty awesome. So anyone out there listening that wants a custom style stabilizer made out of fancy wood, I don't even what's the kind of wood it's made out of?
So that's the thing. We haven't disclosed what wood we
Oh,
used
okay.
up until now. I think we're going to keep the secret for quite a while because it works tremendously good on the bows, vibration wise. I know it's a bit heavier, but once you have them on the bow, you won't take them off. It was a silly concept that I tried, and it worked, but we had to go through a few prototype iterations like everything else. We tried a few different types of wood, and luckily we do not have to chop down trees to fulfill the demand. It's a niche within a niche market. But yeah, it's something one of a kind. It works really well. I think physics-wise, it's a bit more counterintuitive because of the heavy weight. You obviously want to move more weight out to the side of the bow to slow down the moment of inertia coming through when you release the shot. But it works and it looks cool. We might be on our last batch before we have to build them specifically to order or in smaller batches from now on. We are at the stage where we are just limiting our capacity. So it's not that the product line is in the way, but yeah, we can't keep up with the Velagos and the Vulcan Pros. So
Yeah.
we have to direct our attention to the stuff that the people want, and to the stuff that actually works a bit better. I won't discontinue it till the day I die, so it will always be around. But it might be a bit harder in the future to get your hands on a set.
Yeah, and those are the Dentros, and so they're pretty awesome. It is one of a kind for sure. I haven't seen any other wooden stabilizers out there that actually do stabilize a bow. And again, you can get them in a variety of lengths and looks and whatever you're wanting, but it would be a one of a kind style stabilizer if that's what you're into. If you're
Absolutely.
into, again, you mentioned the Vulcan Pros, which I have two samples here. So this is the Vulcan Pro, and this is what I've been running on my bow. This has been my back bar, but you can tell I've chipped it up and scratched it and dug it into the dirt and beat up on it because it gets used. But I absolutely love these bars. They're lightweight. These are not the micro diameter bars. These are just a sleek looking bar that stabilizes really well. And then you mentioned the Velagos, which I'm going to put the comparison up here for people to see. And I'll be doing a video here soon. And the camera doesn't really do it justice. I think the lighting is a little off here, but it's about half as thick. These Velagos are pretty sweet. And they're micro diameter, which everyone seems to be going to nowadays. They look sleeker. And last time we talked, you said that you weren't even considering them. Which I think they were in the works. You just didn't want to get people's hopes up. So talk to us first off. The Vulcan Pros are these right here. So they're carbon weave, which you guys have changed the weave to make it more durable. And then talk to us about these, and then we'll get into the Velagos. So why would someone choose the Vulcan Pro, the standard stabilizer size, over maybe a Velago?
The Vulcan Pro has been in this system for quite a few years. So it's tried, it's proven, it's tested, it's unbreakable. We have a lifetime warranty on all of our stabilizers. So if anything do happens to it, fall out of a tree or your bow gets hurt or your handbrake cable snaps, which have happened in the past and it drives over your bow, then we'll replace it. The the stuff is unbreakable. The Vulcan Pro in the past was a bit too heavy. It was definitely over engineered as far as we can go. Um, On some instances, on longer riser bows, I think it was on the V3X33 from Matthews, we could actually see the vibration being pushed back into the riser to where it flexes too much, and it gave us a weird feedback from the riser on certain length stabilizers. And it was a bit heavy. It was a bit heavy as well. So we refined the Vulcan Pro's tube, made the internal diameter a bit larger. And we've also changed up the layering system between the inside and the outside diameter of the tube to give us the same stiffness on these smaller, shorter lengths, but it gave us a lot better vibration properties over a wider range. So if you're looking for something solid, reliable at a decent price, then that is definitely the way to go. We changed the engraving from deep engraving to this normal white engraving that's just onto the aluminium end through the paint, so that we can actually squeeze them out faster. We've partnered with FedEx to get the fastest shipping that we can get out of South Africa to the US. So I think our logistics is as good as it can get from here. But yeah, we definitely wanted to get them built faster. So we changed up the manufacturing process on that. It's not really to cut down on costs or anything. If anything, we are maybe saving $50 on the manufacturing cost. But on the Velago side, we got a lot of people asking for a micro diameter stabilizer, which is actually a bit vague, because where does micro diameter start? Is it at half an inch? Is it at 16 millimeters? Is it at 15 millimeters outside diameter? And for us, we are aesthetics driven, but we will never push aesthetics in the place of performance. So we've seen all the marketing material from the competitors, why they built the micro diameter bars, and the punchline is to reduce wind drag, which is fair. You are reducing the surface area of the tube, but I mean, it's on 12 inches, and it's already on a shape that is as aerodynamic as it can get. It's already a round bar. So it depends on how far you want to push it. Sometimes we want every single inch, every millimeter that we can squeeze out of our setup to count in your advantage, which I understand. We've been in a few tight spots where it could have turned out different if we didn't squeeze out every millimeter or feet per second that we could get. So we wanted to develop something that performs equally as well as the Vulcan Pro, but in a slightly sleeker package. So we reduced the weight quite a bit on the Velago from the Vulcan Pro. It was at one point, I think it was on a 12-inch length, 27% lighter than the Vulcan Pros, that's quite a lot.
I did notice a difference, because I usually run a 12 and an 8, and then these Velagos came in, so I got the 12, which is cool that on the Velagos they actually have the length, so people can know, if they have multiple sets or whatever, they know what they're getting. But it definitely does feel lighter, taking the weights off and just having the tube and holding the tube. It's definitely noticeable.
Absolutely. We wanted a micro diameter stabilizer that can keep up with the Vulcan Pro's performance. There was nothing that we tested from the competitors that could get to the point in terms of price and performance to the Vulcan Pro. It was just our outer diameter that was counting in well, I guess their favor, it was counting against us because it's not what the people want. They want some sleeker stuff. And so we had some big shoes to fill in terms of performance, and we tested everything from 12 millimeters outer diameter, which that is almost as thick as an outdoor arrow. Some of the outdoor arrows are indoor arrows are thicker than that 12 millimeters, or it looks almost similar. So we dissected a lot of tubes. We did some crazy weaving patterns, different materials. At some stage, the material costed more than what the retail was on some of the 15 and 12-inch vloggers because of the carbon. So you can really match it out to a certain direction if you really want to. But we wanted to get a nice middle ground where we have solid performance, which is first class for us, and then something in a sleeker package for, when you want to squeeze that extra millimeter out of your setup and you need something sleeker for the wind drag or whatever your case might be, then that will also be there. So on the 15 millimeter outer diameter, that was the best result for us between performance and the outer diameter of the tube. We obviously, for the sake of testing, while we were at it, built a few smaller diameter stabilizers as well, but we are really not impressed with the performance on them. And we actually took out the aesthetic layers and did full performance layers of the carbon weave on that smaller diameters. You have to use the $80 billion carbon from Boeing in order to get tubes to perform that we have on that 15 millimeter vlogger. So it if you want to if you want to keep that stiffness on that small package, then you have to drop some serious dollar on the carbon. So that was really important for us, the way it feels, the way it looks. We just didn't want to come out with something that doesn't work because it's going to create a lot of backlash. It's very unlike us. And I want to be confident using my own product in the field. So it will only make sense that we spend as much time possible on it to make it work, rather than just launching another micro diameter stabilizer in an already saturated market. That really didn't make sense for me. So we started last year with this product, and it took us about 6 months to get it to a point where we are happy. So countless swear words. It was cursing left, right, and center with some of the prototypes because we tried some new manufacturing methods, and some of it worked, and others really just didn't pitch at all. So yeah, we finally delivered, I think, on a lightweight package for the guys. You can get about the same done, but with, I think, 4 ounces less on your bow. So if you need to pack out or hike for a few days with your bow, it really makes a difference. I mean, every ounce counts. And if you take an ounce on 10 items, it's 10 ounces less that you have to carry. So we really wanted to do that justice in that mindset, because we always think about all the stuff that we have to carry around. And we know there are other people also planning like that. And if we don't deliver, we don't compete. And we really just want to do more than compete. We want to dominate. So yeah, it was it was taking me a bit longer to figure everything out than I thought it would.
Yeah. So I just want to hit on a couple things here. First, I remember you saying last time we talked specifically about the micros that you would never give up performance for aesthetics, and that was your big key as to why you were sticking with the Vulcan Pros. And it makes sense that so for people that don't know, these Volagos are 0.6, right?
Yeah.
In diameter. Okay, so 0.6 is that centimeters or no, inches, 0.6
that
inches.
is inches. It's 0.590 inches, and it's 15 millimeters in diameter. Yeah.
Okay. Perfect. Yeah, for us weirdos that use inches. Yeah, so we have this right here is it's basically 0.6, so 0.59 inches in diameter, like as far as, the tube goes. And it's really not noticeable because I have some that are 0.5, like those super micro, and it's not noticeable as far as looks go. You can't really notice that 0.1 of an inch. Now, you hold these two up together and you can notice a big difference. And I definitely love the look of the Volagos a lot. I love the Vulcan Pros, but you hold them up beside each other. I'm like, you can just tell it's almost like you took the Vulcan Pro and refined it even more. You just made it look more sleek, more streamlined. And I'll be honest with you, I'm not very professional as far as going out and having a bunch of machines to test with, but I don't notice a huge difference between, as far as wind drift goes, between the Vulcan Pro and the Velago. So I think that is something that a lot of people will say as a marketing ploy. Um, it's and probably technically yes, you're reducing wind drag, but by how much? And it's not something that's really noticeable for the archer like myself. Maybe your brother, who's a competitive archer and has that 30-inch stabilizer, that would make a big difference, right? But
Absolutely.
for us hunters that have the 12-inch, the 10-inch, you don't really notice a bunch of wind drag from that. It usually comes from your riser or from your quiver on your arrows, everything else that's on the bow, not necessarily the tubes from the carbon. So with that being said, I will say that these things they're just a work of art. You can tell that you guys take pride in your work. You over engineer things. I did notice, so the end caps are longer on the Volagos, which again just adds to the sleekness of the design. And then these grip weights, people out there. And I'm going to be doing a review on the Velago here pretty soon once I've used it more extensively. But I've talked about these grip weights, and these are the smaller ones, and I love these. They're so much easier to get off and on of a bow if you need to, and they just look cool. I like the grip. They look more like tires almost, like aggressive mud tires. But guys, I'm telling you, these bars, outside of all the engineering that these brothers are putting together, because they're so smart, and I can't imagine you cursing up a storm. You're so calm. Anytime I've talked to you, you just have this calm demeanor of like, yeah, we'll just kind of just sit back and we're gonna make it happen. And you're so relaxed. I can't imagine you being the mad scientist that's upset in his shop.
I think that's one of the things that I yeah can find the best. It's a lot of people tell that to me. It's calm on the surface, but when you get to your 50th prototype and stuff doesn't line up, trust me, you're
Yeah.
you're bound to hear some of them in Dutch, Afrikaans, and German, um, all at once. So
I'll have to teach you the
yeah.
Spanish ones too, so we can add that to the list. Yeah.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
No, but that's really awesome that you guys, and people don't realize the work that gets put in behind new projects. They just think all you have to do is shrink the tube down and you've got and it doesn't work that way. There's so many things, because again, just the end caps here, people can see there's more engineering that has to go into that. It's not just taking this and shrinking it down to this size. You guys had to make this design the certain way that you did. You had to put the dampening system on the inside, make sure that that worked with the smaller diameter. You're getting the best system out of it. There's so many things that people, and even my little mind, can't comprehend, but I understand that, like you said, it took 6 months for you guys to get something to work for you. And then on top of that, now you've got the function, you have to make it up to your standard of looking good. You don't just slap some paint on it and say you're good to go. Like you
No,
mentioned, and people need to understand this too, is you Cerakote these. And Cerakoting, anyone out there that knows about paint at all, Cerakote is tough as nails. It's heat that's put in, like it's basically impregnated into the metal with the color that you choose. Everything is just, I mean, it's just quality. Anyone that has seen these bars that I've shown to, they're blown away by the quality and just the good looks that they have as well. So,
Thanks, man. I really do appreciate it.
yeah, oh, for sure. So, let's talk a little bit here about the attachment points for the hunters out there before we, I don't want the hunters to get lost when we start talking about target stuff, because I'm personally, and people, maybe by the time this comes out, I don't know, I may have, said some stuff on social media about me getting into target, but I'm going to start shooting target. I'm going down that rabbit hole. Um, Nothing crazy competitive, but I want to up my game during the off season when it's not hunting season. And so we'll get into target here in a minute, but you have these two attachments here. You've got the QD up front for the hunters. So we're going to talk about that first. So the QD up front, and then you've got the Vero, which you have an updated version of the Vero that we'll talk about as well. So the upfront QD mount, which I recommend for anyone that runs stabilizers, if you're going to travel, whatever, I would recommend getting an upfront QD mount. It just makes it easier to pop on and off. This is the straight out, so you do have a straight out, and then you have a is it 8 degree or 10 degree?
We have an 8 degree. It was a 7 degree. We updated it slightly. We got a lot of questions from guys. Can we just get it to that extra degree? It makes quite a big difference in lowering your center weight of gravity, especially on the longer bars. You can see it's steeper down. Sorry. And, yeah, like you said, if you travel, your setup time is next to none. I mean, they just pop right on and off. We have an integrated QD system on the sidebar mount on the Vero as well. We actually came out with a special sleeker QD for the vloggers as well. I think it was in last week somewhere. We had a bit of a pain machining them because yeah, it's a new challenge. We built a jig that we can stack up until 80 QDs at a time in the machine, and they just carve them out at the machine space. So yeah, we have that two different models now. Like I said, we are focused on aesthetics as well, and we brought one out for the Velagos just to get that nice finishing touch.
So just really quick for people out there, is it labeled differently on your site, the standard? So this is the standard, what the standard would look like, guys, with
Absolutely.
the Vulcan Pros. It matches up really well.
Yes.
And then if you put the standard on the Velagos, it's not, I mean, it's really
not
not
hideous,
that
but
big of
it's
a deal.
not right.
Yeah, it's just a steep. I mean, it just, again, going with your aesthetics, it doesn't roll smoothly into the Velagos. Now it still looks great. It's not going to be, some hideous thing. It still looks awesome, but you've made a more sleek one. So, are they labeled differently for people that are going and ordering the stabilizers?
Yes, we've set the two apart so that
Okay,
the Velagos get their own one, and then your Vulcan Pros and the Taurus Pros, which is the target line of the Vulcan Pro, will work on the bigger ones. So they are labeled so that the guys can pick them apart.
perfect. Okay, so you've got the now 8 degree, not 7 degree, and I guess talk to us a little bit about. Well, I mean, you brought it up. So lowering your center mass, that's a big deal. And I personally like the way that my bows sit with the down angle. It's definitely a better feel for me personally. I do notice that my bubble doesn't tend to do a figure 8. It just kind of stays like this in my sight picture,
Yes.
as I get that weight down further. And then with the back bar, so we talked about the front QD, the sidebar or back bar mount. Maybe I'm weird. I call it a back bar, but I know more professional people than me call it a sidebar. So, but the Vero is, and just another amazing piece of machinery here, guys. You've got your QD here that your
That's
bar
cool.
will attach to, like this. And you have multiple adjustments. So this one, I didn't silver Sharpie it, but usually I'll silver Sharpie where it is.
Yeah.
So in case it gets bumped, which I have had
Yes.
happen where I fall on my bow and I'm like, I just kind of pick it up and I'm like, all right, this kind of looks right.
Adjust it back to its original
Yeah,
position.
exactly. The Vero never failed me. It was it was me falling on it and it where it attaches to the bow,
Mhm.
would wiggle a little bit. But this part itself always stayed solid. So talk to us about the Vero, the idea behind it. There is a Hoyt edition as well for people that shoot Hoyts. There is a Hoyt sidebar mount that's a little bit more sleek than this that'll fit on the side of your Hoyts. But talk to us about the
Yes.
Vero, the idea behind it, and yeah.
So, yeah, obviously attaching your sidebar to counter whatever weight you have on the opposite side, on the closed side, is which I call it more frequently. Um, we obviously engineered this to perform on a target level. So nothing stops you from putting it on a hunting bow. We even had to go so far as to design one that can especially integrate with the weights. They just decided they're going to do their own thing, and I can't get mad at them. I would have done the same,
Mm,
but for us here in South Africa, we can't always get stock of the original weight factory
right.
parts, or sometimes they have a distribution issue, or they are just flatlined on the machining side of things. And I think we have a great alternative for the weight mount. It integrates it seamlessly into that Vulcan Pro, and the newer one is a bit more refined to integrate with the Velaga as well. I should actually get that bow back there so that I can share the new Vero of you. Um, so you mentioned that the whole Vero rotated when you fell on your bow. And what we have now is that you slot in the Vero so that you can slide it against the riser of the bow. So because that also happened to me, and it is annoying if you do not have an Allen key with you in the field, because I mean, who's
Mm-hmm.
going to carry a whole toolbox with them? Um, so I decided to make that slide up and up against the riser, and we actually took away that little holes and replaced it with laser engraved marks. Um, that small holes is just a tad too large to get some fine adjustment
Mm-hmm.
on the mount between the parts. So each laser mark now gives you a 5-degree marking. So if you remember, you have a 10-degree drop on your horizontal side of things, then if you do bump into it, you can set it back to that exact mark. But I do actually like to use a Sharpie and just pull uh, a small speck of that Sharpie paint between the two parts, so that when it gets bumped, you can easily align it with
Right.
each other again. What we did add to the new Vero as well is a cone interface between the shoulder and the bottom part, where the stabilizer QD connects with the shoulder part. So between
This
the
part.
yes, that's the one. Um, actually, do
So
have one
it's
behind
more
me.
like this design right here, where this is that's a cone,
Yes,
so it's going to be a cone that feeds into here too. Okay, cool.
absolutely. If you
Yeah, grab
allow
your
me,
bow.
I'm quickly gonna grab. So here's the Vero unassembled. This is the free parts. So you can see this is your quick
Mm-hmm.
disconnect system over here. And we added this cone interface between the two parts uh, to give you some more contact area between these two. So when you tie it down and you actually accidentally bump into it, it's not going to move for nothing. Then for the ease of making or reading your marks, we have added the laser engraving marks from the back side. Because when you hold your bow in your bow hand, let's say your left hand if you're a right-handed archer, then you do not have to tilt your bow back to see where the marks align. So we have added everything to the front of the Vero so that you can make your adjustments a bit more easier. I don't know if you can see there. Yeah, so that's the one. Then we basically stick with the cone interface between the bow mount and the shoulder part. And then obviously this U slot is new. The weight is almost exactly the same. And between the mounting bolt over here is 2 stainless steel washers that keeps everything in place. So when you tie it down there, it's not going to move. So it's target ready, but if you carry it to the mountains, you know it's not going to fail you. So this is basically the new Vero. It's a bit more compact as well. And the design is, for me, aesthetically a bit more round off than the Vero 2. So, and it also matches all the colors of the stabilizers that you can get it in. So I'll have to see what the bow companies do this launching season. If somebody is going to come out with a new color, we're obviously going to try and match it again.
No, that's awesome. That's really cool to see. And I love companies like yours where you take the feedback and you use it yourself too. You're not some companies just like put a product out just to sell something. You guys actually go out and use it. Your brother just got second and probably should have had first, like what you were saying, could have had gold. He shot really well over in China for the university games, which is just a step down from the Olympic games. And so he did outstanding. So he uses the new products and he tests them. You guys go out and you hunt, obviously, with the Euro mounts that you have behind you. You've experienced bumping it, and then you take it and you use your engineering mind and you say, okay, well, how can I make this better? More contact areas, which is stuff that I wouldn't even comprehend. I just know something's happening. And so I love that you actually use it and you use your own products and you make sure that it's the best possible out there. Now, I do want to ask on the Vero, I didn't see, does it line up with the Velago? Does it taper down?
It does taper down a bit. So yeah, you can see the chamfer on there in the reflection of the light. So it tapers down.
We'll just show a little comparison here compared to that one.
Yes.
That one's just a straight 90 degree.
It's still the same diameter here on the QD part over here, but with the step down here, it gives a bit more seamless look to it. So when you put a Vulcan Pro onto it, it still looks as if it's meant to be, but on the Velago, yeah, it just rounds off a bit nicer. It's not that huge of a step down, and it's also not a 90-degree drop between the two parts. The problem of going smaller on this part is that we actually need to go to steel instead of aluminium if we want to reduce the diameter. And because we have the 3 stabilizers in the hunting lineup, making a Vero for each is not really cost effective. Our parts count is through the roof as it is right now. So yeah, it was something that we had to compromise a bit on the design side, but also we wanted to keep it sturdy. What these two parts offer as well is it reduces the vibration that travels through to your sidebar. This is a lot more rigid than the previous design. So we've seen that that this new design really puts the internal dampness through its spaces. We can see it on the data, and we can also feel it if we change the shape or even the amount of dampener material that we put in. We can definitely feel the difference on there. So it's a more rigid design, and it translates to more consistency, less vibration, less sound. Basically everything that you want to aligned for target archery and for hunting.
No, that's outstanding. That's awesome. Thanks for that breakdown. So for people out there wanting to order these, if you want the Velagos, I would highly recommend them. I mean, they're more refined, even more refined, because the Vulcan Pros were refined. These are even more refined. They have that sleeker look that is in right now. If you're into that kind of thing, I like the way it looks personally. The slim look, and then of course you've got the updated QD mounts with an even more down slope, which I like, the 8-degree. Are you contemplating a 10-degree at all, or is it just the 8-degree because you guys have tested that and don't notice a big enough difference to go to 10?
The 10-degree is a bit more extreme. We have we obviously track all the questions and the feedback and stuff that comes through, and we ran a poll on Instagram, and we asked the guys, "Listen, what do you want?" Because we can build anything. A 10-degree is aggressive. It goes a far way down, especially if you run a 15-inch. It starts also taking a bit distance away from your stabilizer. If you look at all the angles and stuff that needs to get back to the bow. And the sweet spot seems to be like an 8-degree. We like to offer something to the customers that they can customize to perfect their setup the way they like it. But adding the 10-degree to the lineup will be a bit excessive for our capacity at this stage. I mean, we're running 8 colors at this stage on the products.
Wow.
And we just added 3 more. We took away the 10 and the Quattro Coyote. So the amount of variance, if we add the 10-degree on the standard size cuties, we also have to add it on the sleeker cuties. So it's a toss-up, and I think the other projects are definitely draining our capacity at this stage. So
no, for sure.
I think,
and also, if you get too much, that could, you stretch yourself too thin, but also it could be overwhelming for the consumer as well, someone who's going in to look for it. And I would agree, if you run anything over a 10-inch and you run a 10-degree down, I mean, that's almost straight down. I mean, that's really steep. So I agree with you. I just figured I'd ask because I know there's someone out there that's wanting to know. Now let's move into the target side of things, unless there's something that you wanted to touch on that I haven't touched on with your Velagos.
Not yet. No, let's jump straight up to the target stuff.
Perfect. So on target, you've got the Taurus Pro, which is more along the lines of the Vulcan Pro, just your target version, and then you have the Velago target. What would be the benefit from one versus the other? And then is there a difference between the Velago normal bars and the Velago target bars?
Okay, so let me start out with the Taurus Pro real first. That is one of my my personal projects that I've set out to build the stiffest stabilizer that you can get your hands on. It was the very problem that sparked the whole existence of this business. It started for me at Target Archery, although we hunted way before we started with Target Archery, but the gap in this industry came in at the target bars for me. So the Taurus Pro is again an over-engineered product. If you want to run 20, 30, 40 ounces up front, that stabilizer will handle it like it's nothing. So it's basically a heavy-duty stabilizer for the target guys. If you know you're going to go heavy, that's your setup to go for. The whole construction of it uses more carbon, so it is a heavier stabilizer than the Velago target. We've been known for a bit heavier stabilizer because I like to preserve the performance instead of punching a few gimmicks in the market. It's also it's super sleek for the amount of stiffness that we can squeeze out of that configuration. So yeah, if you're looking for something that can carry a weight to infinity, that's definitely going to be destabilized for you. But that again is a very niche product in a very niche and saturated market. But I can hands down say that's the stiffest stabilizer or carbon tube that you can get your hands on. So I like to keep it apart from the Velagos, because the Velago target bars, they are obviously sleeker. They use the same end caps as the Velago hunting stabilizers. It's the same diameter. The key difference between the hunting and the target one is the type of carbon that we use and the layering pattern. We obviously get different vibration frequencies on those longer bars. So it is tested on a few different bows, different poundages, different arrow weights to check out what the vibration is doing under certain loads of weights as well. So I capped the performance up to 20 ounces upfront, which is already quite heavy. That should be more than sufficient for 95% of the target archery world. So we use a stiffer carbon. It's a bit more expensive as well, obviously. Also, it's an aerospace material coming from the United States. And you can also see that the weaving pattern is a bit different on the Velago target bars than on the hunting bars. With the target bars, we didn't add the aesthetic layer on top. We went straight up, finishing the tube with all the performance layers that we can get, because again, we're punching for the performance. So Christian went with the last prototype that we built that more or less worked for him. And that's the exact stabilizer that he won the silver at the University Games with. So there is a difference between the two stabilizers. You can also see that there's a price difference as well between the Velago target and the Velago hunting bars. But we also wanted to make it possible for the guys to make it a bit more modular in terms of your setup. If you already have a 12-inch for hunting and you want to punch a few arrows in off season, you can order yourself a really top performing stabilizer that will match the aesthetics and the style. So you do not have to get a whole new different stabilizer set, because the carbon weave is about the only thing that differs between the hunting and the target line.
Gotcha. Okay. So that makes sense. So, and we keep talking about stiffness, and for people out there that don't understand that, you want a very stiff bar, especially for target, to be able to basically take all that as the vibration, and also be able to handle, more than anything, handle the weight out front. Because the point of having a longer stabilizer, and I guess the analogy that I use is, if you take a 2x4 that's 10 feet long and say you can hold it, it's harder to move that back and forth than if you have a 2x4 that's a foot long. You can wiggle that around like crazy. It's just physics. I don't understand it 100%, but it works, right? So the same with stabilizers is, you want as light a weight of a stabilizer like these, as light of weight from where it attaches here all the way out to where you add the weights on the end. And where you add the weights on the end, it's where you want, that's where you want the weight, is on the very end, because that's like the analogy of that 2x4, because it's going to be harder to wiggle back and forth the longer the bar and the more weight is out front. Some people even, and for me personally, I've noticed this too, if I go from an 8-inch stabilizer to a 12-inch stabilizer, I'm able to take an ounce or two off, because the weight is further away from the bow, which again, physics, and Hanno probably understands this more than I do. But basically, it's, you're able to put less weight if it's further away from the bow, because it will hold better for you, hold more steady.
Absolutely.
So that's why we keep talking about stiffness. Yeah.
Yes. you're on the right track. There's something a bit more to the stiffness than just the vibration. Obviously, it reduces the vibration because there's less flex in the tube. And the vibration is, if you look at it in a slow-mo camera, you can actually see the bar move. And movement, while your arrow is launching, is what kills consistency. So what we wanted to do is also, if your tube is too weak, and this is where the moment of inertia part comes in, if if that shot goes off, your bow wants to jump into a certain direction. So if you have a big chunk of weights here supported with a flexible tube between the bow and the weights, the bow is probably going to kick to its direction, but the weight is not going to do its work by stopping that bow for kicking into or rotating in a certain direction. If you attach a really stiff tube between these two systems, then this weight is actually going to slow down that movement. So when you punch that trigger, or you squeeze it off, or if you are patient enough to shoot a hinge or a tension release, then when that bow launches the arrow, it's going to stay perfectly in place because this weight is keeping it from moving. But the secret is in that stabilizer between, or the carbon tube. It should be stiff enough, otherwise it's just going to flex and the bow is going to do what it wants. And also, if it's not stiff enough, you're in the middle of the tube is going to vibrate a lot. And like I said, that vibration is movement if you look at it through slow-mo footage. And we don't want movement in the system, especially not if your arrow is in the rest. So the goal is to give your arrow enough time to leave the bow before the movement and translation comes through. And that's exactly what we did with all the stabilizers. But there's a very fine line and a certain weight to which you can push that tube to stay in that performance range.
Yeah, no, exactly. And another thing too, for me, sound isn't a huge deal. I know that's the cool thing to talk about nowadays with hunting bows. You want the most quiet bow. It's not necessarily the sound that's a bad thing. It's more the efficiency that you're losing by having so much vibration. So when people talk about vibration in the in the hand or in the grip or sound, it's cool to talk about, and that's why a lot of people talk about it. But if you dive down more in depth into it, the reason why that's not good is because it's loss of efficiency. That energy should be going into the arrow, going out of your bow, rather than vibrating the rest of the bow. And so,
Absolutely.
and then, along the lines of what you were saying, where you don't want your bow kicking to whatever side whenever that arrow is still on the rest and could be affected by, any movement in the bow.
Absolutely.
That's a huge deal. That's definitely something that people need to understand.
Yeah, I mean, while we are building the stabilizer, we can just as well engineer some kind of dampener to soak up some of the hand shot. I mean, sound is way faster than what your arrow will be. And when you launch that arrow towards a buck, you made a decision because you thought that it is a good time to launch that arrow. The animal that you're shooting towards is nice and calm, it's not jittery. So that's, I think, more of your own risk factor when you are debating on sound or when to shoot or how loud the broadheads and your bow should be, or that even comes in play a bit more on longer shots because I've had a case where I shot an impala on 50 yards and it wanted to string jump me. It was in the rut, in the rut season, and it actually jumped a bit forward, and I shot him in, I don't know what you call it in English, but on the back
Okay.
into the meat here. So I guess we won't beat sound and the speed of it ever. It definitely plays a factor, but if that bow echoes in a hide or behind a rock, there's no way of stopping it. But we can make the feel a bit nicer if if you want to look at it at that perspective. So obviously, if the tube is engineered right, it won't vibrate as much, and it will feel nicer automatically. So that it's a really complex topic, getting into the physics. It's a vibrating machine. You have this thin piece of string that just wants to smack the hell out of that arrow each and every single time. It is bound to vibrate and push the excess energy into the bow. It's just one of those things.
Oh yeah, no, for sure. So with that being said, let's kind of talk about where people would want to start if they do want to get into the length of I guess of stabilizers, whether that be on their hunting bow or target bow. What do you recommend for people? I know what I tell people I run personally is just a 12 and an 8 is generally what I run. It's compact enough that I'm not beating things up around me. It's not getting in the way, and it feels better than running an 8-inch up front or a short stabilizer. I feel like I don't get much out of it if I run much shorter than a 12.
Absolutely.
But how do you recommend people find that length?
We get that question a lot. We have quite a few different lengths, different variants, different combinations. Especially if you look at the sets and the full packages. I mean, you can combine any length with any other length that you can get your hands on. So on the hunting side, I usually ask the guys, do you walk and stalk, or do you sit in a blind or hunt from a tree stand? Because your environment is one of the main constrictions on your setup. I've been in hides where I had to swap out my stabilizers because a 12-inch is just too long, or a 15-inch is too long. It keeps on bumping on the front of the hide, so it was almost impossible to maneuver inside there. I mean, if you can't move, you are minimizing your opportunity window, and that's really not something you want to mess with. So I asked the guys, if your environment allows a certain length, and that's the max length, go for it. You can even go for a length shorter if you want something a bit more compact, a bit more maneuverable. And it usually ends up, the guys in a tree stand end up with the 10-inch front bar with a quick disconnect on, gives you about 11 inches of stabilizers. With the 3 1-ounce weights, you're about at 12 inches out front. Then the back bar, if they walk and stalk, they usually end up with a setup 12-inch up front up until the 15-inch. We've had some crazy requests to build a 17 and 20-inch, which we also made available now on the Vulcan Pro and the Vlogger as well. So for the walk and stalk stuff, if you know your terrain and your environment and you know it's not going to get in the way, go for as long as possible. Definitely not a 33-inch out front. That's never going to work. Although that will be super stable, and I'd throw some crazy shots on 80 to 120 yards, definitely.
Well,
But
you could just put a knife on the end of that thing and stab the animal with a 33-inch bar.
absolutely. So I'd say if you walk and stalk, anything between a 15-inch and 12-inch front bar, and then your side bar depends on, do you run a quiver? Is your sight mounted in line with the riser, like on the Voigt and Matthews bows? Because that will dictate how much your lean is on your system. So if you have a lot of fighting to do to get your bubble upright, then I'd suggest go for a length shorter than your front bar. So if you end up with a 12-inch up front, go for a 10-inch at the back. You'll get used to the ergonomics and stuff of it being in the way sometimes, but you're going to practice 2 or 3 days and you're not even going to notice about your sidebar after that. If that's not really an issue, to get your bow upright, or if the lean is not that aggressive, go for 2 lengths shorter. Unless you have an 8-inch front bar, then the 6-inch is your next step backwards. So that's kind of my go-to method of getting what the guys are gonna come right with in the field. Because if they can't maneuver, they have a smaller opportunity window. And we really do not need to minimize that window. We want to maximize it, in fact. We want the guys to shoot out to further distances. That's why I say go for the maximum length that your environment will allow you to shoot. Then on the target side, me and my brother have been talking about this quite a few times now, and it basically comes down to this simple formula. If you take your draw length, you can add about 1 inch or 2 inches to your front stabilizer length. So if you're a 26-inch draw length, we'd recommend going for a 28-inch stabilizer out front. It won't be too long, so you can still have the option to manipulate it nicely enough with weights. Otherwise, if it gets too long, you can do the same with 1 ounce up front on a 33-inch bar than with 4 or 5 ounces up front with a 28-inch bar. And the problem with that is the system becomes just too sensitive. If you add 1 ounce up front on a 33-inch bar, it makes a huge difference. So you want yourself to be able to add a few weights for finer adjustments. So in your case, I think you're a 28 or 29-inch draw length, right? So in that case, 30-inch, it's almost the standard on the target field. 33-inch up front, and then I like to pair my sidebar with the type of release I use. If I use anything that I have to put off manually, okay, so if you have a thumb release or a wrist strap release with your index finger, then I like to go for a 12-inch bar because I like more weight up front. So your bow anchors down a bit and you can make on-demand shots a lot easier and faster. Because essentially you have a 7 to 8, let's say 10-second window where you can make the perfect shot. Anything after that is you're just tiring out your muscles and you're fighting with your bow, and that whole cycle of aiming has to restart. So then you're far out to 16 to 20 seconds to make another better shot, which is really the case. So we want your bow to stabilize almost immediately. When you get your full draw and hit the stops, it's down to your anchor point and you look through the peep. Everything must be aligned already because you've already wasted about 3 seconds on that. Then you have another 4, 5 seconds to aim. So it depends on what release you also shoot. I've noticed for myself, if I use a hinge or a tension release, I like a bit heavier weight setup at my sidebar. This keeps the bow from anchoring down and saves you a lot of tension on your front bow shoulder. So it allows you to aim a bit longer, which is normally the case with your hinge or your tension release. You'll always have to aim a bit longer, especially if the wind comes up and you're doing some outdoor target archery. Indoors, it's a bit more consistent, it's a bit more predictable. So for you, I'd suggest run a 33-inch, a 30-inch up front and a 12 or a 15-inch sidebar at the back. And that will be your go-to setup. You can figure your way out with the weights. You immediately know when you've hit a sweet spot. You can see it in your sight picture, and you can also see it the time it takes to get your bow on target and to get it stabilized and nice and smooth. The other two things that are variables apart from the weight is the angle of your sidebar. If you want to refine your weight setup, I normally just drop or raise my sidebar quite a bit because it extends the length of the sidebar or it shortens it. when you shorten it, you're actually making your front weight a bit heavier, so it angles a bit more forward, and with that you gain a lower center weight of gravity. And then the second thing is just to get your bow upright, all the accessories on the one side, you just want to counter it. And then if you have it perfectly upright, I like to notch it just quite a bit more to the one side, just a bit more out, because your bow's grip is going to come and sit here on your finger there. And you are tending to hold the bow a bit still if you fight it into one direction. And if you fight it on your index finger, for me, it's a lot stable, a lot more stable setup than having everything in equilibrium and perfectly in line.
Gotcha. Cool. Well, that's awesome. That's a really good detailed explanation. So people out there listening, whether you're in hunting or target, there you go. That's how you pick out your stabilizers. Now go grab you some stabilizers over there at Quattro.
I'm actually gonna make you a discount code so that we can help the guys out. If they want to upgrade their setup for this hunting season or want to get into target archery, I'm gonna make you a special discount code. It will be let's say RB 15, so they can take off 15% of their whole order. So yeah, it's what's it? Romeo Bravo 15. They can use that.
RedBeard, so RB15. Perfect.
Yeah,
Well,
they can
I'll drop
use that for
down.
any setup.
Yeah, I'll drop that down below for you guys to be able to go pick some up. I'd highly recommend the Volagos. The Vulcan Pros are outstanding. I've run them. I killed my first elk with them on my bow, and they function amazing. And I put them up against some other stabilizers as well, and they reduce the vibration a lot more than some of the other ones that I've run. So I'm really excited to get these Volagos on the bow, get them tested out, mess around with them. I actually have I've got a tournament, or I guess it's not really a tournament. I don't know, a league that we shoot every Thursday night. It starts tonight, so that's going to be a lot of fun. I'm good to go out there and shoot some 3D animals. Do you have anything that we haven't? Do we have anything that we haven't hit on that you want to talk about before we wrap this up?
Not yet. We have like I mentioned, quite a few projects in the mix. We are expanding on the workshop, so we still have a few tests and stuff to run on new products. It's a mix from stabilizers to other accessories that we think have some meat on the bone left. So I'll have to come back to the podcast if we have all those things ready.
Perfect. Sounds good. And I'm really excited that so you guys didn't know this unless you listened to the previous one. They used to be in a shop that they would only have certain hours that they could work because of the way the electricity grid works over there in South Africa. So for those of you that are spoiled and live in America and have never had issues with, maybe the occasional blackout from a thunderstorm that lasts like 30 seconds and you get frustrated because you have to change your clocks. Outside of that, Hanno has been crushing it even with that issue, and they've moved, so now they're able to ramp up that production, and they've been just cranking things out and doing amazing work. So I'm excited to see what's down the line. But even just then with these Volagos, guys, I'm telling you, I can't promise that you're going to go win a silver medal over in China, but I can promise you that they will make your bow look better, and if you practice, they'll definitely make your bow shoot better. So I'm going to say that there. Hanno might not say that, but I'll say that.
We have to be careful on the promise of improvement, but we are building them better, so it should make a difference. We're not going to make you spend money for just looks.
Yeah, well, they do look better. Your bow's going to look better with them on. And like I said, if you practice enough, you will get better as well. Practice with the right reps. But thanks so much for coming on and talking stabilizers, archery. Now that I'm diving down that deep, dark rabbit hole of target archery, definitely going to be hearing more about that as well. So thanks again for your time. I know you guys are busy. Where can they find you if they're looking for you and to ask you questions?
Definitely through the website. We've recently rebuilt the whole website. Um, we are on the shop app as well through Shopify. In the DMs in Instagram, that's the places where we get most of our questions asked. It's super easy for us to answer. Otherwise, email us through the website, and yeah, we try to respond as quick as possible. With the time difference, it makes it a bit difficult. So if you wait for an hour or two or three, yeah, we will definitely be hitting on it in the first thing in the morning. So yeah, any of those social media channels is perfect.
Perfect. Awesome. Well, thanks again so much for your time, guys. I'm going to leave the links down below. I'm going to leave that discount code there for you as well. Go pick up a new set, especially, by the time this comes out, all the new bows are going to be launched. So you guys are going to want to be building out your new setups for next year. And these bars definitely need to make it on there. So that being said, hope you guys have an amazing day. And of course, get out, live your life, and love it.